now there's Italian pickers, there's Irish pickers, Canadian pickers.
What happens when a small town picker becomes the face of America's most beloved treasure hunting show? How does someone who spent decades digging through barns and basements navigate the spotlight of cable television fame? And after 14 years of bringing forgotten Americana into living rooms across the country, has the road finally taken its toll? Stay tuned, because by the end of this story, you'll know exactly what really happened to Mike Wolfe from American Pickers and where things stand as of September 2025. Let's dive in. For millions of viewers, American Pickers represents a uniquely American dream, the idea that history and fortune might be hiding in plain sight, waiting in the cluttered garages and overgrown properties that dot the countryside. At the center of this narrative stands Mike Wolfe, the enthusiastic, knowledge-driven picker whose genuine passion for preservation and rusty gold turned a lifelong obsession into television gold. His infectious excitement when discovering an old Harley-Davidson sign or a piece of carnival memorabilia has been the show's driving force since its January 2010 premiere on History Channel. But the public image, the affable Midwestern treasure hunter with an encyclopedic knowledge of antiques and an easy rapport with eccentric collectors, only tells part of the story. Behind the scenes, the road to television success was far longer and more complicated than most viewers realize. Mike Wolfe's journey to becoming America's most famous picker began long before cameras ever rolled. Born in Joliet, Illinois in 1964, Mike was raised by a single mother alongside his siblings, Robbie and Beth. The family moved to Bettendorf, Iowa, where modest means shaped his earliest entrepreneurial instincts. As a child, Mike discovered his first pick while riding his bicycle, a discarded bicycle, in a neighbor's trash. Even at 8 years old, he saw value where others saw junk, pulling it from the pile, fixing it up, and selling it for $5, a transformative experience that would set the trajectory for his entire life. "I was always a finder," Mike has often recalled in interviews. His childhood was marked by explorations, wandering through alleys, searching abandoned buildings, and developing an eye for overlooked treasures. By his early teens, Mike had graduated from bicycles to antiques, combing rural Iowa for items he could buy cheap and sell for profit. The Midwest, with its aging farmhouses, forgotten barns, and generational turnover, became his classroom. This wasn't just a hobby, it was survival. While other kids had allowances, Mike funded his own wants and needs through picking. Every discarded sign, rusty toy, or vintage advertisement represented possibility. Each dusty barn held potential. The thrill of the hunt became embedded in his DNA long before anyone thought to film it. The apprenticeship years saw Mike refine his craft through decades of anonymous picking. Through his 20s and 30s, he crisscrossed the country in various vehicles, sometimes on a motorcycle, often in vans that doubled as both transportation and storage. He slept in his vehicle to save money, eating at roadside diners and following hand-drawn maps to remote locations where collectors might be willing to part with their treasures. These formative years gave Mike more than just knowledge about antiques. They honed his negotiation skills and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. The art of the pick isn't just about identifying valuable items. It's about building enough trust for someone to invite you into their private spaces, to share the stories behind their collections, and ultimately to let pieces of their history go. By the early 1990s, Mike had opened his first official business, a bicycle shop called Village Peddler in Eldridge, Iowa. But the picker's instinct remained strong. He continued buying and selling antiques on the side, developing specific expertise in vintage bicycles, motorcycles, advertising signs, and Americana. His growing knowledge allowed him to become more selective, focusing on items with unique histories and higher profit margins. In 2000, he opened his first antique archaeology store in LeClaire, Iowa, a small Mississippi River town that would later become familiar to millions of television viewers. The 800-square-foot shop became the home base for his picking operation. Behind the quaint storefront was a growing business built on thousands of miles of travel, countless relationships with collectors, and an increasingly sophisticated understanding of America's material past. And that's when everything changed. The break that transformed Mike from a regional picker to a household name came not through a single lucky find, but through years of methodical groundwork. Unlike many reality television personalities who are discovered, Mike Wolfe created his own opportunity. Around 2034, he began carrying a video camera on his picking trips, documenting the characters he met and the treasures he uncovered. He recognized something that television executives hadn't yet seen, that the world of picking contained all the elements of compelling storytelling: colorful characters, the thrill of the hunt, history, negotiation drama, and the satisfaction of resurrection and preservation. For nearly 5 years, Mike pitched his show concept to networks without success. He produced a sizzle reel, refined his concept, and continued building his business while pursuing his television dream. The rejections piled up. History Channel initially passed, as did several other networks, but Mike's persistence matched his picking philosophy: keep searching until you find value where others don't see it. By 2009, the landscape had shifted. Cable television was hungry for authentic reality programming, and Mike's concept finally found its audience with History Channel executives.
A mirror for a service station. Firestone had DX Petroleum products on.
They greenlit the show with Mike and his longtime picking partner, Frank Fritz, as the leads. On January 18, 2010, American Pickers premiered to an audience of 3.1 million viewers. At that time, the highest-rated History Channel premiere ever for a new series. The show's format was deceptively simple. Mike and Frank travel across America in their white antique archaeology van, following leads to private collections where they negotiate to buy interesting items they can resell at a profit. But what resonated with viewers went beyond the transactions. The show celebrated America's overlooked corners, the eccentric collectors who preserve pieces of history, and the stories embedded in rust-covered relics. During the peak era of American Pickers, Mike became more than just a television personality. He became the ambassador for a particular vision of Americana. The show's success was meteoric, quickly becoming one of History Channel's flagship programs and turning Mike and Frank into unlikely celebrities. Viewers were drawn to Mike's genuine enthusiasm, his ability to spot treasure among trash, and his respectful approach to the often emotional process of parting collectors from their possessions. The magic worked because it was largely authentic. Despite the necessary staging elements of any television production, Mike's knowledge and passion were real, the result of decades spent doing exactly what the cameras now followed him doing. Viewers connected with his childlike excitement when discovering a rare Indian motorcycle or an original carnival banner. His catchphrases, the honey hole, rusty gold, and his signature bundle negotiating technique became part of the pop culture lexicon. The success allowed Mike to expand his business empire. In 2011, he opened a second, larger antique archaeology location in Nashville, Tennessee, expanding his retail footprint and creating another destination for fans of the show. He authored books, including Livin' the Dream and Kid Pickers, sharing his philosophy and encouraging a new generation to appreciate history through objects. His personal brand grew alongside the show's popularity. Behind the scenes, the production settled into a demanding rhythm. Each episode required extensive pre-production research to locate promising picking locations. The crew typically filmed 10-12 hours a day, condensing those experiences into 21-minute episodes. Mike spent months on the road, with the show reportedly filming between 15-20 episodes per season in its prime. The success was undeniable, but the schedule was grueling. Here's where it gets complicated. By the mid-2010s, fractures began appearing in the seemingly perfect Pickers narrative. The first significant public test came through Frank Fritz's health challenges. Though the full story would not emerge until years later, Frank had been battling Crohn's disease throughout the show's run, a condition that reportedly complicated the already demanding travel schedule. The production made accommodations, but tensions allegedly began developing between the co-hosts. In 2017, Mike expanded his brand further with the launch of Nashville-based antique archaeology design, focusing on home decor inspired by his picking aesthetic. This move into design represented Mike's growing business interests beyond the core picking operation shown on television. Around the same time, he acquired property in Tennessee, further cementing his shift from his Iowa roots to a more prominent presence in Nashville. Personal changes accompanied professional expansion. In 2012, Mike had welcomed a daughter, Charlie, with then-girlfriend Jodie Falth. The couple married the following year, creating a family life that required balancing alongside his growing celebrity and business demands. The tension between road life and home life, something the show occasionally touched upon, became an increasingly significant factor in Mike's real world. The biggest public fracture in the American Picker story came in July 2021, when news broke that Frank Fritz would not be returning to the show. Frank had last appeared in a March 2020 episode, with his absence initially attributed to back surgery and complications from his Crohn's disease. However, in interviews, Frank suggested other factors were at play, reportedly claiming he and Mike had not spoken in 2 years despite their on-screen chemistry and decades-long history. The separation became public when Frank told The Sun that he and Mike were no longer in contact, stating, "I haven't talked to Mike in 2 years." He reportedly added, "He knew my back was messed up, but he didn't call me up and ask how I was doing." Mike responded with a public Instagram post expressing care for his former partner, but confirming the show would continue without him. This pivotal moment created significant backlash among fans who had invested in the friendship portrayed on screen. Comment sections filled with viewers expressing disappointment and taking sides in what had become a public dissolution of a partnership that had appeared genuine on television. The show faced its first major test of viewer loyalty. The aftershock of Frank's departure required significant adjustments to the American Pickers format. Mike remained as the show's central figure, now joined more prominently by his brother, Robbie Wolfe, who had made occasional appearances throughout the series. Jersey John, another recurring character, took on a more significant role, and Mike's longtime office manager, Danielle Colby, maintained her position as the hub of operations. The production's tone shifted subtly, still focused on the treasures and their stories, but with a different dynamic, absent the banter between Mike and Frank that had characterized the show's first decade. Viewership reportedly fluctuated, with some episodes seeing numbers drop compared to the show's peak years. However, American Pickers remained a staple of History Channel's programming, a testament to the format's appeal and Mike's enduring charisma as host. Behind the scenes, Mike's personal life saw further changes. In November 2020, amid the pandemic and shortly after Frank's last appearance, Mike's wife Jodie reportedly filed for divorce after nearly 8 years of marriage. The proceedings were handled privately, but by 2021, Mike was confirmed to be in a new relationship with actress Letitia Cline, known from Beauty and the Geek, and as a former model. The relationship became public through social media posts showing them together in various locations. By late 2022, the negative headlines continued when Frank Fritz suffered a stroke in July. Despite their estrangement, Mike posted publicly asking for prayers for his former co-host, writing, "I have been very private in the past year in regards to Frank's life and the journey he's been on. There has been lots of opinions in regards to mine and Frank's friendship and the show, but now is not the time to set the record straight. Now is the time to pray for my friend." The post generated mixed reactions, with some fans appreciative of the sentiment and others questioning the timing and sincerity given their reported lack of communication. Where are they now? As of September 2025, Mike Wolfe continues to lead American Pickers, which remarkably remains in production after 15 seasons and more than 370 episodes. At 61 years old, Mike has evolved from picker to preservation advocate, business owner, author, and television personality. The show's format has adapted over time, with a rotating cast of supporting pickers joining Mike on the road. Mike's public presence has expanded beyond American Pickers. His Instagram account, with over 1 million followers, showcases not just his finds, but his growing interest in small-town revitalization. In recent years, he has invested in properties in his adopted hometown of Columbia, Tennessee, reportedly purchasing multiple commercial buildings in the downtown area. These real estate investments point to Mike's vision beyond picking, a desire to help preserve and rejuvenate the small-town America that has been the backdrop of his career. His relationship with Letitia Klein has continued, with the couple making their home primarily in Tennessee while maintaining connections to his Iowa roots through the original antique archaeology location. Mike's daughter Charlie, now a teenager, occasionally appears on his social media, though he has generally kept his family life relatively private despite his public persona. The antique archaeology brand has continued to evolve, with the retail locations focusing increasingly on branded merchandise alongside the genuine picks featured on the show. The stores have become destinations for fans, drawing tourism to both LeClaire and Nashville. Mike has leveraged his expertise and platform to expand into branded partnerships, reportedly working with various companies on collections inspired by his aesthetic and preservation ethos. Frank Fritz's situation has been more challenging. After his stroke in 2022, he reportedly faced a difficult recovery process. According to sources close to Frank, he has made progress, but continues to deal with health complications. He has remained largely out of the public eye, with occasional updates coming through mutual friends or rare social media posts. Frank reportedly still resides in Iowa, where he had operated his antique shop, Frank Fritz Finds. Though the business's current status is unclear, the once central relationship of the show remains fractured, with no public reconciliation between the former partners. Danielle Colby, the show's office manager and a fan favorite, has continued her role on American Pickers while developing her own projects related to burlesque performance, costume design, and history preservation, with a focus on women's stories. Mike's brother Robbie has maintained his more prominent role on the show, bringing his own expertise in vintage cars and mechanical items. The legacy of American Pickers extends beyond its impressive numbers, though those are notable. The show has reportedly filmed in more than 200 cities across America, with Mike and the team having logged hundreds of thousands of miles on the road. In terms of impact, American Pickers helped spawn an entire genre of treasure hunting television and arguably contributed to the mainstream resurgence of interest in vintage, Americana, preservation, and picking as both hobby and profession. Mike's reported net worth, according to various industry sources, has grown substantially from his pre-television days, with estimates ranging from $7 to $10 million as of 2025. Though such figures should be viewed cautiously as they are rarely confirmed by the individuals themselves. The true measure of success might instead be the show's longevity and cultural impact. More significantly, the show changed how many Americans view the items gathering dust in their barns and basements. By highlighting the historical and monetary value of everyday objects, American Pickers encouraged preservation and created new appreciation for the material culture of America's past. Mike's frequent refrain that he's saving American history one piece at a time has resonated with viewers who might otherwise have discarded items now recognized as culturally significant. Why does this story matter? At its heart, American Pickers, and by extension, Mike Wolfe's journey, is about more than just buying and selling old things. It's about the value of perseverance, the importance of following one's passion even when success seems unlikely, and the power of authentic expertise in an increasingly digital world. Mike's career embodies the very American narrative of reinvention and entrepreneurship. From a child picking bicycles from the trash to a television personality and business owner, his journey reflects the possibilities of turning obscure knowledge into opportunity. The challenges along the way, the years of rejection before the show was picked up, the grueling production schedule, the dissolution of his partnership with Frank, the balance of public and private life, add complexity to what might otherwise be a simple success story. For viewers, the show offered something increasingly rare in reality television: genuine enthusiasm and expertise rather than manufactured drama. Mike's ability to spot value in the overlooked and discarded resonated because it suggested a broader truth that worth often exists where most people fail to look. Perhaps most importantly, American Pickers arrived at a moment when America's relationship with its past was changing. As small towns struggled with economic challenges and demographic shifts, the show celebrated rural America and its history. As digital culture accelerated, Mike championed the tangible, the handmade, and the durable. In an era of disposable consumption, he advocated for preservation and repurposing. In the end, this isn't just a story about a picking show. It's about how passion becomes purpose, how knowledge creates opportunity, and how the objects we discard or preserve tell the story of who we are. Mike Wolfe's journey from anonymous picker to household name illustrates that success often comes not from reinvention, but from doubling down on what you already love and know. The road continues for Mike and for American Pickers, though it looks different than it did when the white van first appeared on television screens in 2010. The partnerships have changed, the business has evolved, and the man at the center has grown from a hungry entrepreneur to a preservation advocate with a platform. What hasn't changed is the fundamental mission: finding value and history in America's forgotten corners and sharing those stories with an audience that still, after all these years, wants to see what might be hiding in the next barn. If you've enjoyed this look at Mike Wolfe's journey, tell me in the comments which other reality TV personalities you'd like to see profiled next. And if you appreciate these deep dives into the stories behind your favorite shows, be sure to subscribe for more. There are always more picks to make and more stories to uncover just around the next country road.